Hello, my name is Dominic, and I will guide you through the tonica world. So what is tonica? Tonica is our AI-based composition software. It has a focus on classical and tale music, but it also supports jazz and the pop harmonization style and dance-style accompaniment patterns. You can imagine tonica as a kind of musical toolbox that solves and provides support for many practical compositional tasks like harmonization, harmonic analysis, figured bass realization, and much, much more. I will show you some of them in the following. One last remark before we're starting. The addition fugata in tonica fugata comes from its ability to compose fugues from a given subject. So let's dive into the software. We are starting with the most prominent use case where you want to add accompanying voices to a given melody. If you already have the melody as a file, for example, as a music XML or MIDI file, you can use the composition wizard in the start screen to create your score in just a few steps. Tonica has been trained on simple chorale-like melodies, but you can use it to harmonize any melody. I have chosen a well-known melody and would like to harmonize it in the style of Johann Sebastian Bach and in a modern style. The next step is to split the melody into phrases. This is important to get good results. You can do this by setting fermatas or let tonica determine a phrasing automatically. In the Compose tab, we select a desired instrumentation, for example, organ, and a harmonization style, for example, Bach 1. Actually, we have two Bach styles that have been trained with different Bach compositions. Then we click the Compose Piece button. Now the composition process starts. It's first creating a pure harmonization and then realize these harmonies as chords. And finally, it will add passing notes to the resulting score. So let's hear the results. For a modern harmonization, we now select pop as the harmonization style and recompose again. As you see in the tab, you have many compose options to get different results. For example, you can influence how typical harmonic patterns, so-called cadences, are inserted. These cadences are displayed in color in the resulting score. Next, we adjust the score layout in the Layout tab. For example, you can select a different paper size. And finally, we will export the score in our desired format, for example, as a PDF file. So now we have printed out the composition as a PDF. If you want to further edit the result, you just click the Edit button here in the button. This will take you to the main program where you have access to all composition and analysis functions in the so-called composition assistant. There are two analysis functions, analysis and check, to analyze a composition. They may also be useful for educational purposes. Tonica fugata performs harmonic analyses and checks your score for rule violations, for example, the prohibition of parallel fifths. We will now perform an analysis on a Bach chorale. We first select the check icon, and then we click the check score button. As you can see, Tonica has done a complete harmonic analysis. The result can also be displayed in other harmonic representations, for example, in Roman numeral or in a Riemann functional notation. Rule violations are displayed in red, errors, and blue, warnings. Tonica finds some rule violations that Bach has not observed, for example, an antiparallel motion in measure 3. To see more details, we hover or right-click on one of the red notes. More information, more details about the rules and rule violations can be found in our manual. We can now let Tonica correct the rule violation for the second phrase using correct voice leading. We first select current phrase, and then we right-click on one of the red notes and select correct voice leading. As we can see, Tonica has eliminated the rule violation. In Baroque music, you sometimes have figured basses that need to be realized as chords. Tonica fugata creates piano score realizations of figured basses. Here's a movement from a Handel flute sonata. The score has a flute melody and a harpsichord part with figured bass notes only. To realize the continuo part, we select the figured bass icon, and then we click the Realize Figured Bass button. Tonica has created a complete harpsichord accompaniment from the figured bass line. Let's just play back the beginning. As you can see in the composition assistant, Tonica offers much more composition functions. Create variations in the style of a Bach preludium or Pachelbel partita. Create accompanying patterns in several dance and pop music styles. Create canons and fugues based on a subject. I will illustrate this by creating a fugue from a two-measure subject. Let's create a 5 voices organ fugue from this small subject. Here's the resulting fugue. The window illustrates the fugue structure and follows it during playback. With tonica 17, we have introduced a new compose function that creates musical dice games. Musical dice games were invented at the end of the 18th century to produce simple pieces of music, for example, waltzes, polonaises, minuets, by rolling dice. I will conclude my presentation with the Mozart waltz created by Tonica Fugata. Thank you very much for your interest.